Joined live from Bath in England by Dr. Bharat Pankhania, who's a senior clinical lecturer at the University of Exeter Medical School. Dr. Pankhania, delightful to see you again here today on The Edge. Unfortunately, again, we got another record has been broken, 5 million deaths. Sadly, the number of vaccinations around the world is still not enough, so this is, I assume, just another milestone along the road.
It's a very unfortunate milestone, and if we look at the countries with a large number of cases and deaths, it's also even more depressing and disappointing. So these are the negative lack of action, the inertia, the inability to take action by President Trump, Joe Bolsonaro in Brazil, and similar in other parts of the world. There are patterns here, and I remember more than 15 months ago on Turkish television warning America that the inaction by President Trump at that time would lead to an excess number of deaths, and now it has come to pass. The other thing that we also need to bear in mind is people who died because of COVID, but not because of COVID infection. And what I mean by this is the missed cancers, the missed heart attacks, the missed strokes, etc. So the fatalities from COVID is much more than just the cases.
Absolutely, and that's something we must talk about in more detail, because the other repercussions, the hidden repercussions of the pandemic are enormous and critical. But the pressing issue right now is that the ongoing spread of the virus is down to two things, I imagine: the lack of consistent following of precautions in countries where vaccinations have been well delivered, but more importantly, the large swathes of the world that have yet to see more than a few percentage of the populations vaccinated.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And this is, again, just as I was criticizing the presidents of some countries, this is a criticism of the pharmaceutical companies. What they have done is sold their forward orders to the richer European American nations, and they have no capacity to deliver vaccines to the poorer nations. So the richer nations are now embarking on a booster program, whereas Africa, Southern America, certain parts of Asia have not received much vaccines at all. And really, we should have had a better release of vaccines across the world rather than a huge tranche of vaccine release for the United Kingdom, European Union, and the United States of America.
But at the same time, one can understand that you have a family, I have a family. You want to protect those closest to you first of all. So this, in a sense, is a very human reaction. But at the same time, there have been in several countries a lot of doses wasted, which is almost a criminal act.
It's such a tragedy because it's not only about delivering the vaccines, it's having the infrastructure to put the vaccines into people's arms. So we really need to have been readied that the vaccines would be delivered and injected into people's arms and not be wasted. So there is that issue that better planning, better provision of logistics would enable other countries who have been given vaccines to actually put it into people's arms. And there again is a failure of politicians to espouse, to promote the preventative, protective effects of vaccines, because a lot of leaders in the poorer nations have not promoted the vaccines because they don't have the vaccines. Whereas what should have been done is promote it and tell the people, as soon as they're available, we will use them, and it is a good thing to do.
So we have people clamoring, give me a shot, which is how it should be. Now, alongside the development of the vaccines, the scientists have been hard at work, the researchers have been hard at work trying to find other solutions. So turning on to a good page, the antivirals have been developed. And in Turkey as well, they're developing nasal sprays to help treat the symptoms of coronavirus. But Merck has recently received a lot of publicity for its steps forward with its new pill. Can you explain to us what's the difference between a vaccine and an antiviral?
Yes, most certainly. So a vaccine makes the human body make immunity against the virus, so that when the virus were to appear, the body's immune system goes into operation, attacks the virus, neutralizes it, and neutralizes an infection. That's what vaccines do. The antiviral medication is acting upon the virus. So it's acting upon certain positions on the virus, i.e. either blocking the receptor or blocking certain enzymes. And this medication you talk about from Merck is about blocking certain enzymes, such that when the virus is multiplying, it makes so many mistakes that it renders the virus ineffective because it's made so many mistakes in its reproduction. So this is the trial medication from Merck, and the key point is, if it is going to work, it needs to be taken very early in the course of an infection. It's similar to what I experienced with use of oseltamivir, which is a influenza receptor blocker, and unless you take oseltamivir very early in the process of an infection, it doesn't work very well. And I think the same will apply here with the medication from Merck.
So obviously this is something that will be another tool in the toolbox. How important might it be for those countries that haven't received vaccines? Is this a useful alternative, or how should we view the development of these new drugs?
The trouble is, it will be a drug under patent, so it won't be cheap. So the poorer nations who have not got the vaccines will be unable to also afford the medication. But if everything was okay, this is how I would look at it. I would say prevention is better than anything. So you prevent, you protect yourself, vaccines will protect you, and then having these drugs at the ready, should you develop signs and symptoms of infection and you take it as soon as possible, that strategy, that multi-layered strategy of masks, vaccines, and having the pills at the ready will all help towards reducing the number of infections and fatalities from this virus.
And that's something that needs to be equally shared around the world, of course. Just to round off, as I always ask you, what is it that people need to be doing? And also I need to ask you about ventilation as the winter is coming on. Can you sum it up in about a minute?
Yes, sure. So for a long time, we have focused a lot on heavy droplet spread and fomite spread, meaning it's on contaminated surfaces. The big thing is SARS-CoV-2 is aerosol spread, so you need good air in your room, in your indoor rooms, so that you dilute the number of virus particles. That will be a good prevention strategy. Then the other thing to do is wear a mask in crowded places like buses and trains. But you need to wear a good quality mask properly. I advise wearing a FFP2 mask. So that's the strategy going forward. Wear your mask, ventilate the rooms, monitor the air quality in your rooms with carbon dioxide monitors, and as soon as possible, give yourself the vaccine, as well as, please, have the seasonal influenza vaccine as well, because we don't want you to have two infections, SARS and influenza, at the same time.
Absolutely, and that's a very important point, that we mustn't forget the other seasonal illnesses. Hopefully the masks will help reduce those again this year, but well, I'm sure this is ongoing. Dr. Bharat Pankhania, thank you so much for joining us today, and I will call you back to discuss the things that have been missed because of the pandemic. That's something we want to do a special program about. Thank you so much for joining us.